Letters never sent. There are stories that never end because they never truly began. They exist in the space between dreams and reality, in the silence between one heartbeat and another. And tonight, I want to tell you such a story. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let your mind drift with my voice. To the cobblestone streets of Florence, where a gentle and silent love affair was written, not with words, but with letters never sent. From my little attic where the last rays of sun often slant through the old window frame, I can hear the church bells from the distant square. Every evening as the sun begins to gild the ancient red rooftops, the bells ring out. They are not loud, but deep and resonant, echoing like a gentle reminder that another day is about to pass. And in that moment of transition between day and night, I sit down at my desk before a blank page and write to you. Today, in Florence, it rains. Not a summer downpour, rushing and forceful, nor the persistent gloomy rain of winter, but a gentle spring drizzle, a light mist, like a sheer veil of silk draped over the city. Tiny raindrops trickle down the window pane, leaving long watery trails, making the world outside blurry, like a watercolor painting bled with rain. Each drop falls slowly, rhythmically, creating a soft, soothing background sound, a wordless melody of nature. The sound of that gentle rain, it stills my mind, and in that stillness the memory of you returns, as clear and gentle as the rain itself. We met on a day much like this, but it was a day in autumn. Autumn in Florence is special. The air is crisp, yet still holds a remnant of the summer's warmth. The leaves on the trees begin to change color, from deep green to golden orange, then to fiery red, like little flames shimmering under the golden sun. I was wandering through the small, winding alleys with no destination, simply to feel the pulse of the city. And then a sudden shower came, forcing me to find shelter. It was an old bookshop nestled in a small corner near the Ponte Vecchio bridge. Its wooden door gave a soft creak as I stepped inside. Inside, the space was profoundly quiet. The scent of old paper, of book dust and aged wood lingered in the air, a warm and strangely safe aroma. Stacks of books rose high, piled from the floor to the ceiling, creating little labyrinths. Yellow light spilled from old desk lamps, creating pools of light and shadow, making the place feel like a secret library from a fairy tale. I stood before a bookshelf, my fingers lightly tracing the spines of old volumes. Then I saw it, an old book of poetry by Rilke with the leather cover faded with age. Almost at the same time, another hand reached for it. I looked up, and that was the first time I saw your eyes. Those eyes. I can still remember them clearly. They weren't the warm brown of an Italian's, but a deep blue, blue like the Mediterranean Sea on a late summer afternoon, profound and gentle. In those eyes was a hint of something distant, a soft sadness, but also a curiosity, a kindness. You smiled, a gentle smile, and spoke in English with a soft French accent. "Excuse me, I didn't mean to," you said, your voice a low murmur, blending with the quiet air of the bookshop. "It's quite all right," I replied, my voice slightly shaky from surprise. "I was just browsing." We both let go of the book and instead began a conversation. A brief conversation, but one that seemed to make time stand still in that small space. We talked about poetry, about the power of words to touch the deepest, most hidden corners of the soul. We talked about night trains, about the feeling of sitting in a carriage watching the lights of small towns flash by in the darkness, like stars on the earth. We talked about the taste of coffee. You said Italians drink coffee as if drinking the soul of the city, quick, strong, standing at the counter. But you preferred to sit down, to savor a cafe corretto, coffee with a shot of grappa, both bitter and spicy, like the complex emotions within a person. I watched you speak and felt a strange sense of peace. There was a strange connection, not through words, but through the resonance of two solitary souls finding each other in a random moment of the universe. Then the rain stopped. The evening sunlight, golden and hazy, streamed through the glass window, illuminating the tiny dust particles dancing in the air. We knew it was time to leave. We stepped outside. The cool air after the rain made my skin prickle. We stood there, by the banks of the Arno River, glittering under the sunlight, the water high and rushing after the rain. "I should probably go," you said softly, your eyes looking at me as if trying to memorize my face. "Yes," I nodded, a vague feeling of regret creeping into my heart. "It was lovely to meet you." You smiled a hauntingly gentle smile. Then you stepped forward and placed a soft, warm kiss on my cheek. It wasn't a kiss of expectation or of passion. It felt more like a respectful farewell, a beautiful question mark for a story that had only just begun. That kiss was as light as a butterfly's wing touching a flower, fleeting, but leaving a warmth that lingered for a long time. You turned and walked away, merging into the stream of people on the bridge. I stood there watching your back recede until it blended into the golden evening light and disappeared. And from that moment on, I began to write. The first letter, I wrote that very night. Under the faint yellow light in my attic, I told you about how I felt. I wrote about your blue eyes, your warm smile, the brief conversation I would never forget. I wrote about the vague longing that had begun to weave its way into my heart, even though I didn't even know your name. I asked you, I wonder where you are now, what you are doing, and if you ever think of me, even just a little. Then more letters followed. Each day, each week that passed, I wrote to you. Those letters became my confidants, a place where I could pour out all my thoughts, all my emotions, without fear of judgment, without fear of rejection. On cold winter days, when Florence was shrouded in a thick fog, the church bells sounded more distant and sorrowful. I sat by the window, wrapped tightly in a woolen scarf, holding a cup of hot tea. Steam rose from the cup, blurring the world outside. And I wrote to you. I told you about the cold that had seeped into every corner of the city, about the people hurrying on the streets, huddled in thick coats. I imagined you in Paris, the city of light. Was it just as cold there? Were you sitting in a small cafe watching snowflakes fall outside the window, holding a book and a glass of hot vin chaude? I asked you, do you remember the crisp cold of the day we met in Florence? Do you remember the warmth of that fleeting kiss on the cheek? Then spring arrived, bringing new life to the city. Tulips and carnations began to bloom in the flower beds. The trees on the streets budded a tender, fresh green. The chirping of birds each morning mingled with the church bells, creating a symphony of rebirth. I often took my notebook and pen to the park, sat under an ancient tree, and wrote to you. I told you about the miraculous change in nature, about the hope and joy that spring brought. I imagined us walking together in the park, breathing the fresh air, admiring the first flowers. I wrote you letters full of optimism and joy, sharing with you the simple happiness I felt. On some summer nights, when the sky was full of stars and the air was warm, I climbed onto the building's rooftop, sat there and watched the city fall asleep. The yellow streetlights illuminated the quiet streets. Somewhere, the sound of a guitar and the humming voice of a street performer echoed. And I wrote to you again. I told you about the romantic beauty of Florence at night, about the secrets the city only reveals after dark. I asked you in Paris, under the lights of the Eiffel Tower, do you ever look up at the starry sky and think of me? Do you ever wonder about my life, about the letters I write to you but never send? Each letter was a piece of my life, an emotion, a memory I recorded and entrusted to it. I wrote about the smallest things, a delicious meal I cooked, a good book I read, a touching movie I saw. I wrote about my dreams and aspirations, about the fears and anxieties I didn't dare share with anyone. You became an invisible friend, always listening and understanding me without needing a reply. Over time, the wooden box where I kept the letters grew heavier. It held not just sheets of paper, but a whole year of emotions, memories, love, and longing. Sometimes I opened the box, turned over each letter, reread the written words. I smiled at the sweet memories, and sometimes a tear rolled down my cheek for the things that could never be. But I never felt regret, because those unsent letters gave me a pure, selfless, unconditional kind of love. A love that existed in my own world, where there was no rejection, no hurt, no end. It was an unsung love song, a never-ending dance. And in that silence, it became beautiful and eternal. Perhaps the beauty of unfinished things is more captivating than the truth. It gives us the right to dream, to imagine, to keep for ourselves a private world no one can invade. You remain the mysterious Parisian man in my memory, and I, the Italian girl with letters full of longing, sent into the void. And then, one day, I realized I no longer wrote to you out of longing, but out of habit. For the peace that the writing brought, I was no longer curious about who you were, where you were. You had become a symbol, an inspiration, a confidant I was fortunate to have found in a fleeting moment of my life. I put the wooden box down, not to forget, but to cherish it. to keep it as a treasure, a beautiful part of my life's memory. I know that out there somewhere you are living your life with your own joys and sorrows. And perhaps on some night, when the wind blows from the north, carrying the chill of the Seine, you will suddenly wake with a strange, fluttery feeling. A vague memory of a rainy day in Florence, of a girl in an old bookshop. Know that, in the warm south, a heart beats a gentle rhythm, always wishing you well and cherishing the beautiful moment we shared. Our story may have no ending, because it never truly began. And perhaps that is what makes it so special. It is as light as a dream, and as sweet as a whisper in the night. Tonight, in Florence, it rains again. The raindrops still fall rhythmically, steadily on the rooftops. The sound of the rain, so peaceful, so gentle, like a lullaby of the earth and sky. I am not writing a letter. I just sit here listening to the rain and feel the peace spreading within my soul. And I know, without a word spoken, without a letter sent, my feelings for you and for that moment remain as true and intact as the first day. Sleep now, peaceful sleep, and dream beautiful dreams of untold stories, of unsent letters, of loves that exist forever in silence and gentleness. Forever the night watchwoman in Florence.